Well, here we are again, and it's always delightful to be with you and just talk about the Lord together. So tonight, we're going to have a good time. Well, tonight I'm going to be talking about too much familiarity. Now you say, that sounds kind of boring to me. I don't think it will if you listen just a little bit, because I'm sure all of us have had a little bit of too much familiarity. Jesus grew up in a little town called Nazareth. It's not an oppressive town, and small, and the people there didn't know who Jesus was. They just thought he was the carpenter's son. Okay, has anybody ever just kind of misjudged who you were? Now, of course, we say, don't compare him with Jesus. Well, sometimes those of us that have taken Jesus, we do get compared. So let's just think about it a little bit. When did Jesus know that he was God in the flesh? When did he know that? He knew it at least when he was 12. Because remember when they went to the feast, when his parents took him there at the feast in Jerusalem? And they lost him on the way home, and they said, "Oh, where's Jesus?" So they circled back, and here he was in the temple, and he was teaching all these older men, and they said, "How does he know these things?" So they said, "Son, you frightened us, and you should have stayed up with us." Well, he said, "Didn't you know I should have been about my Father's business?" So Jesus didn't know. Well, Nazareth didn't know. So when Jesus began to get an age, and by the way, he was growing up with a family. And the Bible says that even the times that his brothers were older, and it was feast time, they had gone to the feast. And they were outside and they saw Jesus, and they said, "Why don't you go up to the feast and sort of show them what you can do?" His brothers. So the Bible said they didn't know. Isn't it something how that could stay under wraps? But see, Jesus had not begun his ministry. And as soon as he did, do you know what happened? The Bible said they were offended. Here were sick people. I don't know whether they were lepers. I don't know what they were, but they were sick. And so Jesus, knowing the power that was within his grasp, had compassion wherever he saw human need. So he healed a few sick folks. And instead of saying, "Yay!" no, the Bible said they were offended. So they came up with some things like this. We knew you when. We know who you are. And they had all kinds of, "Who do you think you are?" And is that, aren't you the boy next door? Or he's this carpenter's son. That's what he was called many times. Isn't this not the carpenter's son? No, it's not the carpenter's son. He lives in the carpenter shop working with Joseph, but he was not the carpenter's son. Some folks will never allow you to change. I remember my husband and I were having a great growth spurt in our spiritual lives. And whenever you have a growth spurt, that there is a change. The Bible said we are changed from glory to glory and from faith to faith. Well, that had happened. Well, I saw someone at a gathering that had known me years ago. And I was so ready for a hug and a kiss and say, where have you been all my life? And you know, instead, I was whisked into a room by myself. I told my husband I was waterboarded. That's why they were doing a lot of waterboarding. And the greeting I got was, why have you changed? Well, you know, I was so caught off guard that I started immediately trying to tell them about the sacred things God was doing in my life. Mistake. I'm sorry you were offended. Excuse me. But I didn't. I stood there and tried to explain. And I came out wounded. And when you try to tell the sacred things of the Spirit to someone that doesn't want to hear it, you're better off to walk away. I found that out the hard way. Anyway, some folks will never allow you to change. I had changed, and I admit that, and I thank God for it, and I hope I'm still changing. Now, what did Jesus do then? If they weren't going to receive him, what was he going to do? The Bible said he healed a few sick folks and left the area. Now, if you go to Israel, I don't see big traffic semis. You know, I don't see great carloads or anything going down Nazareth. No. Capernaum? Oh my, on the seaport? Jesus went to Capernaum. There he had no former comparison, familiarity. There he was free to be himself, who was God. And there he did miracle after miracle after miracle. He put Capernaum on the map. And when you go there, you want to go down to Capernaum. You want to go across the Sea of Galilee. Because these were all special haunts of Jesus. Because they didn't try to put Jesus in a box. So, I would just see how that relates with you and how and what we can do about it. Now, Jesus told the disciples when he was getting them ready for a trial run, first of all he sent 2. Next he sent 20, or a dozen, 12 disciples. One day he sent 70. And each time he put on them the same spirit that was on himself, that when they came back, they were doing exactly what Jesus did. He gave them power. He said, I would not send you out there. He said, you'll be as sheep among wolves. And I said, one thing I want to tell you when you go there, if you go up to a house and they receive you, stay in that house. Don't go from house to house. You just say, well, maybe they'd like to have us there. No, he said, don't, he said, you're not there on a parade from house to house. He said, you're there to represent me. Stay in that house. And he said, if you don't, if they will not receive you, I read this today and I thought, this is extreme. He said, it would be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah than it would be for them not to receive you. Wow. And it shook me tonight when I read that. Boy, Jesus really meant for the disciples to be accepted as he was. So, now he said, behold, he said, I bring you great tidings of joy. Now he said, the tidings that I bring, he said, if you open your heart to receive them. Now I tell you, more and more as he got to the cross, people began to be like this. And even the disciples, you know, they said, and even Peter said, Lord, no, they're not going to kill you. I'll protect you. Oh, Jesus said, get behind me, Satan. I have a mission. And I told you in advance, I'm going, and they will lift me up on a cross, and I will die. And the Bible said from that time they followed him, amazed and afraid. Jesus had a mission, and his mission was the cross. But even his ones who had followed the closest with him, Peter, James, John, not John, he was at the cross. They followed him amazed and afraid. So when he got closer, and the time now had come, they had arrested him. Peter was washing his hands, or warming his hands over there in the fire, and he saw what was going on. He thought, oh, they're probably coming for me next. So a maid walked up and said, aren't you one of those? I think I saw you with Jesus. Oh, no, not me. No, that was somebody else. I don't know that man. And right then something, and Jesus had told him, he said, Peter, you think you're so strong, but before the cock crows 3 times, you will deny me. And sure enough, the crow, he could hear it in the distance 3 times. And the Bible said Peter went out and wept bitterly. And so it followed all the way through. Where did the disciples go? They ran to the upper room. They got in there, they hid. They pulled the shades. They didn't want anybody to find them up there because they knew that they'd be coming for them next because of association. So much familiarity. Well, what happened? It was then, after the cross, and this is so precious to me. Do you know where Jesus went after his resurrection? Well, yeah, sure, he saw Mary and Mary Magdalene, and yes, he did. But, you know, there's a little something that I just discovered myself. It said, and he appeared to Cephas. Who's Cephas? Cephas is Peter. Before he showed himself to the disciples, where did he go? Peter. You talk about the love of God. And I wish I knew what was said at that meeting. I'm sure there was a lot of penitence, a lot of repenting, a lot of, I'm sorry, Lord, I'm sorry, Lord. But Jesus loved Peter. But he was his first one before he ever appeared to the other disciples. because he went out and wept bitterly. Now, where does that make us fit in tonight? If you are one of Jesus, the more familiar that you are with him, the more you have the cross too. The Bible said everyone will bear a cross by the sheer identity of knowing Jesus Christ. And the better you know him, the more you will be singled out. But if you follow on to no one, to know him, what will happen? He said, I'll make you the one sought after. They'll say, I have heard there's somebody over there that knows Jesus. There's a John. Yes, there's a Mary. There's a Barbara. There's somebody that knows Jesus. And I tell you, you'll be sought out because of your familiarity with him. And then one day when he comes in the clouds, we'll be so glad we know him. Oh yes, he'll know the multitude, but you know, knowing Jesus, he'll know the individuals. He'll know the ones that are his. He'll know the ones that have stood by him in every tempest and every trial. So don't be afraid to be familiar with Jesus. Polston from the Life That Wins. I hope you have a wonderful week and that you stay close to Jesus. God bless.